I can't believe it's already time to talk about all the books that I read in June. So, I have 4 books to talk about again. I know I've been on a streak for these past few months just reading like 4 books a month. And it's just like, that's how it's happening right now. I don't know. I'm going to try to do better in July. I really want to read more books because I've literally so many books to read, so little time, and I just need to get them done. I just need to read them. But even though I only read 4 books this month, I still feel like that was like a total win for me because I'm surprised I've been reading anything. I feel like these past few months have just like not been conducive to reading, so like reading anything is like so good. It feels amazing. So we're gonna jump right on into the books that I've read in June, and the first one that I read was A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. It's one of my new favorite books like ever, and it's so surprising because typically I don't like contemporary fantasy all that much. It's not my favorite genre, but this book blew that genre out of the water. I need everybody to read this book. Literally, even if you don't really like contemporary fantasy, still check this book out. It's so much fun, and the ending was like twists and turns. So many crazy things were happening and I was just in shock the entire time. So basically this follows a teenage girl named Alice, and she finds out that Wonderland is real. She finds out that all these monsters are real, and she has to be the one to go and fight them. And if you watched my mid-year book freakout tag, you'll know that Alice and Hadda are like 2 of my new favorite characters of all time. I love them. I ship them so hard, and I'm currently in the middle of the 2nd book, and I'm just like, let them be together. Let them be together. They're so cute. I love them so much. And I don't know, these characters just fill me with so much joy. This world fills me with so much joy. It's so magical and exciting. And as I'm saying all of this, I've realized that maybe it's not that contemporary fantasy isn't my genre. It might just be that I want to read contemporary fantasy about marginalized people. Like, I really enjoy A Blade So Black, and then I also really enjoy Labyrinth Lost. So I feel like that's just the theme here, is I don't really want to read contemporary fantasy about like white straight people. I want to read it about like marginalized people. But yeah, basically this is just like an Alice in Wonderland reimagining in a more modern day setting. And I also mentioned this before, but if you like the sci-fi movie Alice, you're gonna love this book. It's literally so similar. It also kind of reminds me of Once Upon a Time. I wasn't a big fan of that show, but I did watch it, and it's sort of similar to that as well. The second book I read this month was actually a nonfiction book, and that was Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, and that is by Rennie Edo Lodge, and I gave that book a 5 out of 5 stars. This book was literally so impactful, so insightful, and I really loved the way that it talked about racism specifically in the UK, because the way that they experience racism, especially anti-Black racism, is similar but so different to the way that we experience anti-Black racism in America. So I felt like that was a really interesting and nuanced conversation that a lot of people aren't having. And I feel like so often, and also rightfully so, we're so concerned on anti-Black racism in America, which is so important and it's something that we really need to work on. But we also don't really consider the ways that anti-Black racism works in other countries. I had to go on Pipeline on my old class to figure out the name of the author that we read in my British Lit class. But the first week in my British Lit class from last semester, we talked about this author named Afua Hirsch, and she wrote British, and it's on race, identity, and belonging. That's like the full title. And that was really my introduction to anti-Black racism in the UK and how different it is for people of different class standings and social standings. So I 100% recommend reading British on Race, Identity, and Belonging by Afua Hirsch. It was absolutely amazing. And I also recommend reading This Is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge. They're both so wonderful and really great companion books. So if you're looking for books about anti-Black racism that isn't centered on the US, I would definitely recommend checking out those two. But technically I only read the Rennie Edo Lodge book this month. I didn't read the other one this month. The third book that I read this month was A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy, and I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. So I did talk about this book, I think, in my mid-year book freakout tag. It might have been my most disappointing read so far, I can't remember. But I know that I did talk about it, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, which isn't a really bad rating at all. I would still recommend checking this book out, and I'm definitely going to read the sequel when it comes out. But this book for me really missed the mark of what it set out to do. I felt like going into this book, I assumed that it was going to be more about the two sisters. It would be more action-packed, it would be more dramatic, and then when I read the book, it was very quiet, it was very mundane, it was just like a lot of the same things just kind of routinely happening, and there wasn't a lot of action, there wasn't a lot of family drama. It was all just kind of like family drama that had happened off screen and before the book even started, and during the book they were separated, and it wasn't really a lot about the family. And really the whole book was basically the main character being insecure and afraid of her powers until like the very last chapter. It was just a lot of her not really growing with her powers. I wanted more character development in that arena, and we don't really get to see her grow with her powers or like gain any sort of confidence with her powers. And I feel like that was a really big missed opportunity. It felt like a lot of this book was like leading up to the next book. Like this was all just a prequel, and then the second book is going to be where everything actually happens. And I felt like possibly this book could have been shortened and kind of weeded out with all the non-important scenes, which there were a lot of filler scenes. And the second book could have been added to this first book, where like maybe we keep like the first half or the first quarter or whatever, like just like a little bit of it, and then the second book where we get just more action and like more intrigue and more character development. But a few of the things I did actually enjoy were the writing style. I felt like the writing style was so beautiful and it went by so fast, and I really enjoyed that. Like it never really felt like it was dragging too much. Like there were definitely filler chapters, but thankfully the writing kind of made up for it, if that makes sense. And also there were a few side characters that I was really interested in. I really liked the sister, I liked the mom, I thought the dad had kind of an interesting backstory, and then her mentor as well was like my favorite character. He was so funny, so witty, had such an interesting backstory, and I really wanted to know more about him and to see more of him on the page. But I felt like a lot of them got really overshadowed by the main character and her love interest, who are both really kind of boring. And I hate to say that because like the main character really didn't do anything wrong. She had a lot of really good moments. Like I really enjoyed every time she killed somebody. Even though she didn't enjoy that, I personally as a reader did enjoy that. But despite the fact that like she has these really badass powers and she's like, she kills like a couple of people, it just never really made up for the fact that her personality was so one note. And I felt like her entire characterization was just the fact that she was afraid of her powers, and that was it. And then her love interest was even more stale and bland. I was just like, why does she even like this guy? Like, what redeeming quality besides the fact that he's like super hot is like the reason that she's so attracted to him? Like what, like why? But overall, I do think that this book really sets up well for a second and more interesting book. I'm really hoping that I love the second book. You know, sometimes the first book, especially with a debut novel, can be a little rocky, can be a little bit like not everything connects super well. So I totally understand that I don't want to be too harsh on this book, but I feel like there were some improvements that could be made to make this book like perfect. And the last book that I read for this month was Wasted Words by Stacey Hart, and I've talked about this book a little bit on my channel as well. And this is an Emma by Jane Austen retelling, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars as well. So this book started off super strong and I really liked it. All of the like Emma references were perfect and spot on. It was very strong in like the Emma retellingness of it. Does that make any sense? And I really liked the characters. I felt like they were all really well developed and they all had interesting backstories. They all like had this sort of like undeniable chemistry, and not just like romantic chemistry, but just like, you know, platonic chemistry, work chemistry, just all really fit well together. And then I felt like the romance kind of went really fast, and it happened a little too soon for my taste. I would have wanted the relationship to start a little bit later in the book, not necessarily like till the end of the book, but just a little bit later. I felt like it just happened too soon. I did really like the drama in it though. I felt like all of like the friendship drama, the relationship drama was really realistic, and a lot of the main character's insecurities were super realistic, and I did really enjoy all of those aspects of the book. But I think my biggest gripe with the book was towards the end of the novel, where everything is resolved. I felt like it was super cheesy. I felt like it was just a little bit like out of place with the rest of the book, and I just didn't like it. I don't want to spoil it at all for you guys. I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm gonna tell you guys how it ends, but it was just super cheesy and I just wasn't into it. I didn't like it. But overall, it's a super cute romance book, totally adorable, super fast paced, really easy to read. I love the fact that the main character works in a book/bar thing. Also, they have comic books. It's really cute. I love that, and I just love how much she loves reading. It's so cute, and I totally recommend it. It's also free on Amazon, so you can just like pick it up and try it out. It's adorable. Okay, so that was all of the books that I've read in June. Now I want to quickly go through some of the books that I'm planning to read in July. I have a lot on my TBR. It's very different than it was for the last couple of months. And I also have some plans for the rest of the month that might or might not happen. We'll see. So the first book on my TBR is Wayward Witch by Zoraida Cordova, and I was graciously given this ARC and I love it so much. It's so beautiful. Look at this cover. So beautiful. I love Labyrinth Lost, and I'm so excited to get into this third book. I also love Bruja Born. I think Bruja Born might be my favorite in the trilogy so far, but I'm super excited to read this book and see if this becomes my new favorite. I don't know, we'll see. The next book that I have is Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender, and I cannot wait to read this book. I really need like a good contemporary book just to kind of like break up all of the fantasy that I've been reading. And I don't know, I think I'm really going to enjoy this. I feel like I've seen so many amazing and positive reviews, so I cannot wait. The next one is of course a fantasy, and that is Bone Crier's Moon by Catherine Purdy. And I am so excited to finally get into this book. It's so gorgeous. I love this cover. I've just been in such a huge fantasy mood lately, and I feel like this is going to be perfect. I am so excited, and I really hope that it just gives me all of the good fantasy vibes. Also, Stephanie Garber blurbed the cover. She said, "Brimming with rich mythology, deadly romance, and fantastically flawed characters. Absolutely spellbinding." Stephanie Garber. And if you guys know me, you know I love Caraval. Caraval is one of my favorite trilogies. I just love it. I met Stephanie Garber last year at Y'all West. She was absolutely amazing. I love her. Such a fan. So if she liked this book, then hopefully I will also like this book. The next book is another fantasy historical fiction sort of book, and that is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. This is just like the regular copy that I have. I have the really pretty copy right there that I got from Illumicrate. And I'm so excited to read this. It's a Les Mis retelling. It has some like fantastical elements as well. And if you know me, you know I love historical fantasy, literally my favorite genre. And I'm just so thrilled. You know, I've heard it compared to Anti-Darken, and I love Anti-Darken. It's literally my favorite trilogy of all time. And hopefully this becomes a new favorite as well. The next book is another fantasy, one I might be buddy reading. I don't know. We're trying to like figure it all out. And that is Mirage by Samaya Dowd. And I am so excited about this book. I feel like I've been hearing so much more about it lately, which is so like interesting because I feel like no one has talked about it for so long, and now I just keep hearing about it all the time. So I'm super excited about it. I'm pretty sure it was Fadwa that actually mentioned it on Twitter, and ever since then I've just been seeing it everywhere. So I feel like it's a sign that I need to read it in July, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to read this book. It seems really short, so I don't know, we're gonna see how it goes. Also, look at these end pages. Oh my goodness, it's freaking gorgeous. The next one is really a book I should have finished last year, and then drama happened and I put it down, and I put it down as a joke, and I just never picked it back up because I have like one brain cell. And that is Furyborn by Claire Legrand. And I feel like I really just need to finish this book. I really loved it. I was 100 pages into this book and I read this actually right in the middle of when that whole like discourse about like Game of Thrones, like the whole incest discourse happened, and I jokingly said, oh my gosh, Furyborn has incest in it, oh my gosh, whatever, you know, as a joke. Because Claire Legrand was like on one side of like the discourse, I guess, I don't know. And it's kind of sad though, because I made that joke and then one of like my favorite people on BookTube blocked me, and I'm like, okay, it was just a joke. I was just making a joke. I'm still gonna read this book. But anyway, that was all like, what, last year? Maybe? I don't remember. When did that happen? But anyway, this has been on my shelf ever since then. I need to finish it. I probably will have to like kind of flip through the beginning because I really don't remember too much of what happened in the first 100 pages, but I do remember it being super fast paced. I do remember really loving the characters and the writing style and all of like the different intricacies that were happening. So I'm super excited to get back into this, and I promise no more incest jokes, I promise. And the last book is another contemporary, and that is The Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Garvis Graves. And I have been wanting to read this book for so long time. I've been wanting to read this book for so long, and I mainly picked up this book because the girl on the cover looks like Taylor Swift. Like, you cannot tell me that that does not look like Taylor Swift. In her Red era, that's Taylor. So I'm super excited to get into this book. I don't really know too much of what it's about, but I feel like with a lot of like adult contemporaries, especially if it's like kind of like a romance slash literary fiction, I don't want to know too much of what it's about. But hopefully I really like it. I don't know, I've never really heard anybody talk about it. It's not a super long book, it's pretty short, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in June, and all the books I want to read in July. We'll see how it goes. And I will of course update you guys on how it goes through vlogs and other videos. And if you want to know more, I am always on Twitter, literally always. And also I do a lot of updates on Goodreads as well. So if you're ever wondering how I'm feeling about a book while I'm in the middle of it, Goodreads is like the perfect place to go. I am constantly updating. So yeah, that was the entire video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye! Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you. Oh.